What's up, fam? It's Coach Cam back again with another video. And in today's video, we're going to be discussing strength versus muscle size. Can you have both? We're going to talk about how to train for strength, how to train for muscle size, the differences, why you see people who are small but jacked, why you see people who are very big but not very strong, and what are some ways that you can improve your strength and your muscle size. So to start off, let's talk about training for 1 rep max. So when you are training for a 1 rep max, that means you're trying to lift as much weight as you possibly can for 1 rep. If you train like this, your training often looks like you have sets of 3 reps, sets of 5 reps. So automatically your rep range is lower, right? In order to have a weight on the bar that is closer to your 1 rep max. And you do this because 1 rep max is a skill. 1 rep max is something that is a skill to train for. And so it's important to understand that, because that means there's nervous system adaptations going on within your body in order to produce the force and recruit the motor units responsible for moving really heavy weight all in one go, right? You need to have what's called synchronous motor unit recruitment. It means you're recruiting all the motor units available all at one time to produce the most amount of force possible. Once again, this is a skill and must be trained if you want to have the best results with it. So that is what 1 rep max is. Also, 1 rep max includes your limb lengths. So there's a genetic component, right? If you have shorter quads, you can probably squat more weight. Whereas if you have longer quads, squat is probably not going to be your best 1 rep max lift. So all your limb lengths come into play, and then also kind of your muscle fiber type distribution. A lot of people chalk this up to being some people are more type 1 dominant, some people are more type 2 dominant. Honestly, I think since most people are average, most people have about a 50-50 split of both, so I wouldn't really worry too much about muscle fiber type distribution. You probably have plenty of both fiber types to do really well. You just might not have the percentages to make you elite at a type 2 fiber sport, such as like powerlifting, which is 1 rep max lifting, right? So hopefully this helps you understand 1 rep max training is very heavy, but it's also not to muscle failure, right? So you're lifting 3 reps, 5 reps, leaving a rep in the tank, leaving 2 reps in the tank. You're practicing the perfect form, the perfect technique to be able to move the most weight possible. You're not always training your muscles as hard as possible. It's all about the movement. You almost forget about the muscles entirely and just focus on the movement itself, right? You ask a powerlifter what they're training today at the gym, what do they say? I'm training bench and squat. I'm training deadlift and bench. You know, they tell you the lifts they're training, right? That's how you know you're training for strength, because you're training certain lifts. You're not thinking about muscle groups. You're thinking about this lift. I'm here to train bench, right? I'm here to train weighted pull-ups. Like, that's when you know, okay, you're training more for that 1 rep max skill component. You're not actually training for the muscle side, right? So let's go over how to train to grow muscle. So muscle is recruited by effort as the set gets harder and harder, which is closer to what we call muscle failure, right? The point where you cannot perform another clean repetition. So that's the point that you have stimulated all the motor units within the muscle, and you've done as much as you can to stimulate hypertrophy. Now, in terms of how many sets would you do for muscle growth, you would do a set or 2, right? You would do a couple sets per muscle. Nothing too crazy. I mean, some people you can do just 1 set. If that's not working for you, you can move up to 2 sets, something like that. 3 sets if you have to, you know? So it's up to you, but you want to make progress over time as you're training to failure every chance that you can, right? So leaving a rep in the tank is not something ideal for muscle growth, because most people especially are not training to failure. They're not actually leaving a rep in the tank, because most research studies have shown that people underestimate the number of repetitions they can do, with a weight by like 5 or more reps. So it's important to get the most stimulus you can when you're in that set, which would be to train to muscle failure. So let's go over, why do you find small guys who are strong and sometimes you find big guys who are not very strong? What's going on with that? So let's first talk about the small guy who is strong. He has a very specific nervous system to move a lot of weight on those lifts, right? He's been practicing the technique. He's been practicing the lifts with heavy weight. He knows his body knows this exercise, it knows this movement, and like I said earlier, it can produce force in an instant and recruit almost every motor unit available in order to move the most amount of weight in a short period of time. So the fact that the person is small does not necessarily mean that their body cannot produce that much force. They can produce a lot of force when they train and practice producing a lot of force on those specific lifts, right? So the small guy is stronger, appearing stronger than the bigger guy because the small guy is practicing these lifts like his life depends upon it, right? And he has the leverages and the limb lengths to get a heavier weight moved, whereas the bigger guy may not have those same genetic limb lengths or that same technical skill or neurological efficiency at that movement. So why do you find sometimes you run into bigger guys with more muscle, but they're weaker? What's up with that? So those guys have been training their muscles effectively, right? They've been training to muscle failure on a variety of lifts, not just 1 or 2 lifts, but on a variety of exercises. So they don't have that neurological skill component built up on one particular lift, right? So somebody who is a power lifter trains like only bench press, or almost always at least goes back to bench press every chance they can, and then they have decent sized chest. Whereas the guy who is big but supposedly weak, he's not training bench press all the time. It might be in his routine. It might not be in his routine at all. He might not even touch the barbell bench press, right? But he does chest flies. He does the chest press machine, dumbbells, stuff like that. So he does maybe a variety or just lifts that people don't typically test their 1 rep max on, right? And the big guy who's weak is also, he's just not testing his 1 rep max very often, if ever, right? Because it's not required to build muscle. You don't need to know your 1 rep max. It's not important. It's not on their radar, right? The big guy who's supposedly weak is walking in the gym thinking about what muscles he's going to train, right? Whereas the power lifter is walking in thinking, these are the lifts I'm going to hit. These are the exercises I have to do because I need to get better at the exercise. Whereas the big guy is using the exercise to create mechanical tension and stress in the muscle, taking it to muscle failure. So obviously there's genetic differences here and there's training differences, and that is why you have big guys who appear to be weak, but I use that in quotes because they're not weak. A muscle that is bigger is stronger. It can produce more force. However, if you want to combine that with the nervous system adaptations, you're going to need to practice those lifts specifically and with heavier weights, right? If you're using a 10 rep max weight, it might not transfer very well to like a 1 rep max weight. So hopefully this video helped you understand what it's like to build muscle versus what it's like to build what we're going to deem as strength, which is how much weight you can move in one given time. So thanks guys so much for watching. Like, share, comment, and subscribe.